Dr. Jake Thompson looked out the window of his small spacecraft. The gray surface of the moon got closer and closer. His heart beat fast. This was supposed to be a simple test flight around the moon. But now, things were going very wrong. Red lights flashed on the control panel. Loud alarms rang in Jake's ears. He tried to stay calm, but fear crept into his mind. The spacecraft was falling too fast. He couldn't slow it down. "Mission Control, do you copy?" Jake said into his radio. Only static answered him. He was alone up here, millions of miles from Earth, and he was about to crash. Jake's hands flew over the controls. He tried everything he knew to stop the fall, but nothing worked. The moon's surface filled his entire view now. He could see individual craters and rocks. Come on," Jake muttered. He pulled back hard on the control stick. The engines roared louder, fighting against the moon's pull. For a moment, Jake thought he might make it. Then there was a loud bang. The entire spacecraft shook. Jake's head slammed against the side of his helmet. Through blurry eyes, he saw one of the engines had exploded. There was no stopping it now. Jake braced himself for impact. The spacecraft hit the moon's surface with a massive crash. Metal screamed as it bent and broke. Jake was thrown against his seat straps. When everything stopped moving, Jake opened his eyes. He was alive, but in bad shape. Pain shot through his body. His spacesuit was torn in several places. Worst of all, he could hear the hiss of air escaping. Jake tried to move, but found himself stuck. Part of the spacecraft had collapsed around him. He was trapped in the broken machine. "Okay, Jake, think," he said to himself. "You're an astronaut. You've trained for this. What's first?" He knew he had to check his oxygen levels. With shaking hands, Jake looked at the gauge on his suit. His heart sank. The crash had damaged his oxygen tank. He had less than an hour of air left. Jake tried his radio again. "Mayday, mayday. This is Dr. Jake Thompson. I've crashed on the moon. My oxygen is low. If anyone can hear this, please respond." Only silence answered him. Jake fought down a wave of panic. He had to stay focused if he wanted to survive. He looked around the crashed spacecraft. Most of the equipment was broken, but maybe he could find something useful. Jake started to search, moving carefully in the low gravity. After a few minutes, he found an emergency toolkit. Inside was a patch kit for his spacesuit. Jake quickly got to work sealing the tears. It wouldn't fix his oxygen problem, but at least it would slow the leak. Next, Jake tried to free himself from the wreckage. He pushed and pulled at the metal around him. Sweat formed on his forehead from the effort. Slowly, he managed to create a small opening. Jake squeezed through the gap. Finally, he was out of the crashed spacecraft. He stood up carefully and looked around. The sight took his breath away. The moon's surface stretched out in all directions. Gray dust and rocks covered everything. In the black sky above, he could see the Earth. It looked so beautiful and so far away. But Jake couldn't enjoy the view for long. He checked his oxygen gauge again. The numbers were dropping fast. He had maybe 40 minutes of air left. Jake knew he had to find shelter. The moon's surface was dangerous. It got extremely hot during the day and freezing cold at night. Plus, there was no protection from space radiation. He spotted a large crater not too far away. Maybe there would be a cave or overhang he could use for shelter. It was his only hope. Jake started to walk. Each step was a bounce in the low gravity. Any other time, it might have been fun. But now, it was a race against time. As he walked, Jake kept trying his radio. "This is Dr. Jake Thompson. I'm stranded on the moon. My oxygen is running out. Please, if anyone can hear this, I need help." Jake reached the edge of the crater. He carefully made his way down the slope. His eyes scanned for any kind of shelter. Suddenly, Jake's foot slipped on the loose moon dust. He tumbled down the crater wall, rolling over and over. When he finally stopped, Jake found himself in complete darkness. He had fallen into some kind of cave or tunnel. Jake turned on his helmet light. The beam showed smooth walls curving away into the darkness. This was no natural formation. It looked artificial. Before Jake could process what this meant, he heard a sound. Footsteps were coming towards him. But that was impossible. He was alone on the moon, wasn't he? A figure stepped into the light. Jake's eyes went wide with shock. It wasn't human. Jake's heart raced as he stared at the alien figure before him. It stood about 7 feet tall, with a slender body covered in shimmering silver-blue scales. Its large, almond-shaped eyes glowed softly in the darkness of the cave. For a moment, neither moved. Jake's mind struggled to accept what he was seeing. He had expected to die alone on the moon's surface. Instead, he was face to face with an actual alien. The creature tilted its head, studying Jake with curiosity. Then, to Jake's surprise, it spoke. The words were unlike any language Jake had ever heard, but somehow he understood their meaning. "You are injured," the alien said. Its voice was melodic, almost musical. Jake nodded, still too shocked to speak. He suddenly remembered his dwindling oxygen supply and glanced at his gauge. Less than 20 minutes left. The alien seemed to understand. It pointed to Jake's damaged suit, then to its own chest. Jake realized the creature wasn't wearing any kind of spacesuit. Somehow, it could breathe in the airless environment of the moon. "I can help," the alien said. It held out a hand, or rather, a 3-fingered appendage that served as a hand. Jake hesitated. Every science fiction movie he'd ever watched flashed through his mind. But what choice did he have? He was minutes away from suffocating. Slowly, Jake reached out and took the alien's hand. Its skin felt cool and smooth, like polished metal. The alien gently pulled Jake to his feet. "Follow," it said, turning to walk deeper into the cave. Jake stumbled after the creature, his mind racing with questions. Who was this alien? How long had it been on the moon? Were there more of its kind? They walked for what felt like hours, but Jake's oxygen gauge told him it had only been minutes. The tunnel gradually widened, and Jake began to see strange, glowing symbols on the walls. Finally, they emerged into a vast cavern. Jake's jaw dropped in amazement. Before him stretched an entire city, carved into the moon's interior. Curved structures of an unknown, pearlescent material rose in graceful arches. Soft, blue light seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere at once. But most shocking of all were the inhabitants. Dozens of aliens, similar to Jake's rescuer, but with subtle variations in color and size, moved about the city. Some turned to stare at Jake with obvious surprise. "Welcome," Jake's guide said, "to Lunara." Jake opened his mouth to respond, but a wave of dizziness hit him. His oxygen was almost gone. He swayed on his feet, vision blurring. The alien reacted quickly. It placed a hand on Jake's chest, and suddenly, Jake felt a tingling sensation spread through his body. The dizziness faded, and he found he could breathe easily. "How?" Jake gasped, taking deep breaths of what should have been a vacuum. "Nanites," the alien explained. "They've adapted your body to our atmosphere." Jake's scientific mind raced with the implications. These beings possess technology far beyond anything on Earth. "I am Zix," the alien said. "And you are the first human to discover our home." "I'm Jake," he replied, still marveling at his ability to breathe. "Dr. Jake Thompson. I can't believe this. How long have you been here?" Zix made a gesture that Jake interpreted as a shrug. "By your time. Thousands of years. We came here long ago, fleeing a dying world." Jake's mind was bursting with questions, but before he could ask more, another alien approached. This one was slightly taller than Zix, with deeper blue scales. "Zix," the newcomer said, its tone sharp. "You know the laws. No surface dwellers." Zix stood straighter. "Elder Vex, this human would have died. I could not let that happen." The Elder, Vex, turned its gaze to Jake. Its eyes seemed to pierce right through him. And now that he lives, what shall we do with him? He has seen our city. Our secrecy is compromised. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He had gone from the joy of being rescued to the fear of being seen as a threat in a matter of moments. "Please," Jake said, addressing both aliens. "I mean you no harm. I'm a scientist, an explorer. I crashed here by accident." Vex's expression was unreadable. Intentions matter little. The fact remains that your presence here endangers our entire civilization. Jake's mind raced. He had to convince them he wasn't a threat. But how? Suddenly, an idea struck him. "Wait," he said. Maybe this is an opportunity. For both our peoples." Zix and Vex exchanged glances. "Explain," Vex said. Jake took a deep breath. "You've been here for thousands of years, hidden. But Earth is advancing. It won't be long before we establish permanent bases on the moon. Instead of hiding, what if we could learn from each other? Share knowledge, culture, technology." He saw a flicker of interest in Zix's eyes. Even Vex seemed to be considering his words. "It's a chance for a peaceful first contact," Jake continued. "A new chapter for both our species." The cavern fell silent as the aliens pondered Jake's suggestion. The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance, all because of one human's crash landing on the moon. The silence in the cavern stretched on. Jake felt the weight of dozens of alien eyes upon him. He stood tall, trying to appear confident despite his torn spacesuit and the strangeness of his surroundings. Finally, Elder Vex spoke. "Your words are intriguing, human, but they also bring great risk." Zix stepped forward. "Elder, if I may speak." Vex nodded, and Zix continued. "We have watched the humans for centuries. Their curiosity, their drive to explore, it mirrors our own past. Perhaps it is time we embrace that spirit once more." Murmurs rippled through the gathered aliens. Jake couldn't tell if they were sounds of agreement or protest. Vex raised a hand, silencing the crowd. "This decision affects all of Lenara. We must consult the council." The elder turned to Jake. "You will come with us, human. But know this, if we decide you are a threat, you will never leave this place." Jake swallowed hard, but nodded. He had no choice but to trust in the aliens' sense of fairness, and in his own ability to convince them. Zix guided Jake through the alien city. As they walked, Jake couldn't help but marvel at the sights around him. The buildings seemed to glow from within, their surfaces smooth and pearlescent. Alien technology hummed and pulsed, far more advanced than anything he had ever seen on Earth. "How do you power all of this?" Jake asked, his scientific curiosity overcoming his nervousness. Zix pointed upward. "The sun. We harness its energy even through the moon's crust." Jake's mind raced with the implications. If humans could learn this technology, it could revolutionize energy production on Earth. They arrived at a large, circular building that Jake assumed was some kind of government center. Inside, a group of aliens sat in a ring, their scales shimmering in various shades of blue and silver. This, Jake realized, must be the council. Elder Vex took a seat among them, while Zix and Jake stood in the center of the ring. All eyes were on the human visitor. "Speak, Earth Dweller," one of the council members said. "Tell us why we should risk exposing ourselves after millennia of secrecy." Jake took a deep breath. This was perhaps the most important speech of his life, not just for him, but for all of humanity. "Members of the council," he began, "I stand before you not just as an individual, but as a representative of my species. Humanity has dreamed of meeting alien life for as long as we've looked up at the stars. Now that dream has come true, in a way none of us could have imagined." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I won't pretend that humans are perfect. We have our flaws, our conflicts. But we also have an unquenchable thirst for knowledge, a desire to understand the universe around us. That's what brought me to the moon today." Jake gestured around the room. "Look at what you've built here. It's incredible. The technology you possess could solve so many problems on Earth. Clean energy, medical advancements, space travel. And in return, we could offer you new perspectives, art, culture, and the chance to see your own solar system through fresh eyes. Some of the council members leaned forward, looking interested. Others remained impassive. Jake pressed on. I know you're worried about the risks, but think about the alternative. Humans are coming to the moon, whether you reveal yourselves or not. Wouldn't it be better to meet us as friends and equals, rather than being discovered by accident? Jake saw Zix nodding encouragingly. He took it as a sign to continue. Imagine a future where our species work together. We could explore the stars, share knowledge, learn from each other's histories. It wouldn't always be easy, but I believe the benefits far outweigh the risks. He looked around the room, meeting the gaze of each council member. You've been isolated here for thousands of years. Maybe it's time to rejoin the galactic community, and humanity would be honored to take that journey with you. As Jake finished speaking, the council chamber erupted in discussion. Alien voices rose and fell, discussing his proposal in their musical language. Jake couldn't understand the words, but he could sense the excitement and the apprehension in their tones. Zix leaned close to Jake. You've given them much to consider. Now, we wait. Jake nodded, his heart pounding. He had said his piece. The fate of human-alien relations now rested in the hands, or appendages, of the Lunara Council. As the debate continued around him, Jake couldn't help but marvel at the situation. Just hours ago, he had been plummeting toward what he thought was certain death. Now, he stood in the heart of an alien civilization, potentially on the brink of changing human history forever. Whatever the council decided, Jake knew one thing for certain: his life, and the future of humanity, would never be the same. The council's debate raged on for what felt like hours to Jake. He stood in the center of the chamber, trying to keep his composure as alien voices rose and fell around him. Zix remained by his side, occasionally whispering translations of key points. Finally, Elder Vex raised a hand, and the room fell silent. All eyes turned to the elder alien, who seemed to consider its words carefully before speaking. Dr. Jake Thompson of Earth, Vex began, its voice resonating through the chamber. Your words have stirred much discussion among us. After careful consideration, we have reached a decision. Jake held his breath, his heart pounding in his chest. We will agree to open diplomatic relations with Earth, Vex announced. A wave of relief washed over Jake. He felt his knees go weak, but he managed to stay standing. However, Vex continued, this comes with conditions. We will not reveal ourselves to all of humanity at once. The risk is too great. Jake nodded, understanding their caution. What do you propose? You will be our ambassador, Vex explained. Return to Earth and select a small group of trusted individuals, scientists, diplomats, leaders. Bring them here, and we will begin the process of cultural exchange. Jake's mind raced with the implications. He would be responsible for one of the most important first contact scenarios in human history. I accept, Jake said, his voice filled with determination. I won't let you down. Zix placed a hand on Jake's shoulder, a gesture that seemed both alien and comfortingly familiar. I will be your liaison, the alien said. Together, we will bridge the gap between our worlds. As the council meeting adjourned, Jake found himself swept up in a flurry of activity. The Lunarans, now that they had decided to open up, were eager to show him their world. Zix led Jake on a tour of the underground city. They visited laboratories where Lunaran scientists conducted experiments that seemed like magic to Jake. He saw gardens where plants from the aliens' homeworld grew in carefully maintained environments. Each sight filled him with wonder and 1,000 new questions. This is amazing, Jake said as they watched a Lunaran artist create a sculpture out of what looked like living light. I can't wait to share all of this with my colleagues on Earth. Zix's expression turned serious. Remember, Jake, the Council's trust in you is not absolute. How you handle this responsibility will shape the future of both our peoples. Jake nodded, feeling the weight of his new role. I understand. I'll be careful about who I bring here. We'll start small, with people I trust completely. As they continued their tour, Jake's scientific mind began to work overtime. He saw potential collaborations everywhere he looked. Lunaran energy technology could revolutionize Earth's power grids. Their medical knowledge could cure diseases humans thought incurable. And their space travel capabilities. The possibilities were endless. But it wasn't just about what humans could gain. Jake also saw opportunities for the Lunarans. Your people have been isolated for so long, he said to Zix. There's so much of human culture and history that might interest you. Art, music, literature. Zix's eyes seemed to glow brighter at the idea. I admit, I have always been curious about Earth's cultures. Perhaps this exchange will benefit us in ways we haven't yet imagined. As they talked, Jake noticed something change in the Lunarans around them. The initial wariness they had shown towards him was fading, replaced by curiosity. Some even approached, asking questions about Earth through Zix's translations. Jake did his best to answer, describing everything from Earth's diverse ecosystems to its bustling cities. He found himself grinning as he talked about simple things like rain or the feel of grass under bare feet, experiences the moon-dwelling Lunarans had never known. As the tour came to an end, Jake felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. He was eager to return to Earth and begin the process of introducing humanity to their new alien neighbors. But he also knew the enormous responsibility that now rested on his shoulders. Zix, he said as they prepared for his departure, how do I even begin to explain all of this to my superiors? The alien made a sound that Jake had come to recognize as laughter. One step at a time, my friend. One step at a time. Jake nodded, taking a deep breath. He looked around the alien city one last time, marveling at how much had changed in just a few short hours. He had come to the moon expecting a routine mission. Instead, he was leaving as the key to a new era in human history. As he prepared to return to his repaired spacecraft, Jake knew that the real adventure was only just beginning. The future of two worlds now depended on what he did next. Jake's heart raced as his spacecraft approached Earth. The familiar blue planet grew larger in his view screen. He had been gone for only a few days, but it felt like a lifetime. His mind was still reeling from everything he had experienced on the moon. As he entered Earth's atmosphere, Jake rehearsed what he would say to his superiors. How could he possibly explain the existence of an advanced alien civilization living right under humanity's nose? He knew he had to choose his words carefully. The spacecraft touched down at the NASA landing site. A crowd of officials and scientists rushed to greet him. Jake took a deep breath and opened the hatch. Dr. Thompson, his mission director, called out. We've been worried sick. What happened up there? Jake stepped out, his legs a bit wobbly after days in low gravity. Sir, he said, I need to speak with you and the other leaders immediately. What I have to tell you will change everything. The next few hours were a whirlwind of debriefings and explanations. Jake sat in a room with NASA's top officials, along with representatives from the government. He told them everything. The crash, his rescue by Zix, the hidden city of Lunara, and the Council's decision to open diplomatic relations. At first, they looked at him like he had lost his mind. But Jake had proof. He showed them photos and videos he had taken with his suit's camera. He presented them with a small device Zix had given him, a token of Lunaran technology that defied Earth's current understanding of physics. As the reality of his story sank in, the room erupted into chaos. Some officials were excited, others terrified. Arguments broke out about how to proceed. We need to tell the public immediately, one scientist insisted. Are you crazy? A government agent shot back. It would cause worldwide panic. Jake raised his voice to be heard over the commotion. The Lunarans don't want us to go public yet, he explained. They've asked that we start small. a select group of scientists and diplomats to begin cultural exchange. This seemed to calm the room somewhat. The officials began to discuss how to proceed, who to involve, and how to keep this monumental discovery under wraps for now. As the meeting dragged on, Jake's mind wandered to the bigger picture. He thought about the incredible advancements humanity could make with Lunaran knowledge. Clean energy, space travel, medicine. The possibilities were endless. But he also worried. What if some humans reacted with fear or aggression? What if governments tried to weaponize Lunaran technology? The peace between Earth and Lunara felt fragile, and Jake knew he had to tread carefully. Days turned into weeks as preparations were made. A small team was assembled. Brilliant scientists, skilled diplomats, and open-minded leaders. Jake worked tirelessly to brief them on Lunaran culture and prepare them for what they would see. Finally, the day arrived for the first official Earth delegation to visit Lunara. As they boarded the specially prepared spacecraft, Jake felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. "Remember," he told the team, "we're not just representing ourselves or our countries. We're representing all of humanity. Let's make a good first impression." The journey to the moon was tense. Many of the team members were silent, lost in their own thoughts about what they were about to experience. Jake tried to reassure them, sharing stories about Zix and the wonders of the underground city. As they approached the lunar surface, Jake directed the pilot to the hidden entrance Zix had shown him. The team gasped as the ground seemed to open up beneath them, revealing the vast cavern that housed Lunara. They landed, and as the hatch opened, Jake saw Zix waiting for them. The alien's eyes seemed to smile as it raised a hand in greeting. "Welcome, friends from Earth," Zix said, its words translated through devices the Lunarans had provided. "We have much to share with one another." Jake watched as his teammates took their first steps onto Lunaran soil. He saw the wonder in their eyes, the same wonder he had felt when he first discovered this hidden world. As introductions were made and the cultural exchange began in earnest, Jake felt a profound sense of hope. This was more than just a meeting between two civilizations. It was the beginning of a new chapter in the history of both worlds. But even as he celebrated this moment, a small worry nagged at the back of Jake's mind. How long could they keep this a secret from the rest of humanity? And what would happen when the truth finally came out? As weeks turned into months, the secret collaboration between Earth and Lunara progressed rapidly. Jake found himself constantly shuttling between the two worlds, coordinating exchanges and mediating discussions. The small team of Earth scientists and diplomats worked tirelessly alongside their Lunaran counterparts, making breakthrough after breakthrough. One sunny afternoon on Earth, Jake sat in a high-security lab, watching Dr. Emily Chen, a brilliant physicist, examine a Lunaran energy device. Her eyes sparkled with excitement as she turned to Jake. "This is incredible," she said, her voice filled with awe. "If we can replicate this technology, we could provide clean energy to the entire planet. No more fossil fuels, no more energy crisis." Jake nodded, sharing her enthusiasm. Similar scenes were playing out across various fields. Medical researchers were on the brink of curing diseases once thought incurable. Environmental scientists were developing ways to reverse climate change. Space exploration plans that once seemed like science fiction were now becoming possible. But as Earth's chosen few delved deeper into Lunaran knowledge, keeping the secret became increasingly difficult. Rumors began to circulate. Conspiracy theorists noticed the sudden leaps in technology and started asking questions. Governments not involved in the project grew suspicious of the participating nations' rapid advancements. One day, as Jake prepared for another trip to Lunara, he received an urgent call from his superior at NASA. "Thompson, we have a problem," the voice on the other end said grimly. "A hacker group claims to have evidence of alien contact. They're threatening to release it to the public." Jake's heart sank. He had always known this day might come, but he had hoped for more time. "What do we do?" he asked. "We're calling an emergency meeting with the Lunaran Council," his superior replied. We need to decide how to handle this before it spirals out of control. Hours later, Jake found himself back in the familiar council chamber on Lunara. The atmosphere was tense as Earth representatives and Lunaran leaders debated their options. We should deny everything, one Earth diplomat suggested. Discredit the hackers, call it a hoax. No, Jake interjected, surprising himself with his own boldness. We've hidden the truth for too long. Maybe it's time we trust humanity with the knowledge of Lunara. Zix, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. Jake is right. Secrecy has served its purpose, but it cannot last forever. Perhaps this is the push we needed to reveal ourselves to your world. The debate raged on for hours. Some feared widespread panic or aggressive reactions from Earth governments. Others saw it as an opportunity for open cooperation and advancement. Finally, Elder Vex raised a hand for silence. We have heard all arguments, the elder said, and we have reached a decision. We will support Earth's leaders in making a controlled revelation to your people. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Earth's involved governments worked around the clock to prepare statements, gather evidence, and plan for every possible reaction. Jake found himself at the center of it all, helping craft the message that would change human history forever. On the day of the announcement, Jake stood backstage at a global press conference. World leaders from various nations were present, ready to address humanity together. Jake's palms were sweaty as he listened to the introductory speeches. Then, it was his turn. Jake walked out onto the stage, facing a sea of cameras and curious faces. He took a deep breath and began to speak. People of Earth, he said, his voice steady despite his nerves, I stand before you today to share a truth that will reshape our understanding of our place in the universe. We are not alone. A murmur ran through the crowd. Jake continued, explaining about Lunara, the secret collaboration, and the advancements they had made together. As he spoke, screens behind him displayed images and videos of the Lunaran city and its inhabitants. I know this news may be shocking or even frightening to some, Jake said, but I have walked among the Lunarans. I have seen their world and worked alongside them. They come to us in peace, offering knowledge and friendship. As Jake finished his speech, the room erupted in a cacophony of questions and exclamations, but before he could address them, a hush fell over the crowd. All eyes turned to the back of the room. There, flanked by human security personnel, stood Zix. The Lunaran raised a hand in greeting, just as it had done when Jake first crashed on the moon. Greetings, people of Earth, Zix said, its words translated for all to hear. We have much to learn from each other. As cameras flashed and reporters clamored for attention, Jake felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The secret was out. Now, the real work of bringing two worlds together could truly begin. The days following the revelation of Lunara's existence were unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. The world seemed to hold its breath, processing the monumental news that they were not alone in the universe. Jake found himself thrust into the global spotlight. He appeared on countless news programs, explaining the wonders of Lunara and answering endless questions about the aliens who had been their secret neighbors for millennia. At first, reactions were mixed. Some people celebrated the news, seeing it as the dawn of a new era for humanity. Others were skeptical, demanding more proof. A few fringe groups even protested, claiming the aliens must have sinister intentions. But as more information was shared and Lunaran representatives like Zix made public appearances, fear and doubt began to give way to curiosity and hope. The Lunarans' advanced technology and peaceful intentions slowly won over even the most stubborn skeptics. 1 month after the announcement, Jake stood on a newly constructed platform at the base of the moon, watching as the first public shuttle prepared to take civilian visitors to Lunara. The passengers, a mix of scientists, artists, and ordinary citizens chosen by lottery, buzzed with excitement. Ready for another first, Dr. Thompson? A voice asked. Jake turned to see Emily Chen, the physicist he had worked with, grinning at him. Jake smiled back. Always, Dr. Chen. Though I have to admit, I never imagined we'd come this far so quickly. As the shuttle took off, Jake reflected on how much had changed. Earth's governments, once divided, were now working together more closely than ever before. The United Nations had established a new branch dedicated to Lunaran relations. Scientists from around the world collaborated on projects that merged human ingenuity with Lunaran knowledge. But it wasn't just in labs and government offices that change was happening. Jake saw it everywhere he looked. Children played with toys inspired by Lunaran designs. Artists created works that blended Earth and Lunaran styles. Even fashion had been influenced, with shimmering, scale-like fabrics becoming the latest trend. Of course, not everything was perfect. There were still those who feared the Lunarans or sought to exploit their technology for personal gain. Jake and his team worked tirelessly to address concerns and prevent misuse of the shared knowledge. As the shuttle neared Lunara, Jake's communicator buzzed. It was a message from Zix. "Old friend, come to the Grand Hall when you arrive. We have a surprise for you." Intrigued, Jake made his way to the Grand Hall after landing. He found Zix waiting for him, along with Elder Vex and several other Lunarans and humans. "Jake Thompson," Elder Vex said, its voice filled with warmth. "You have done more for both our peoples than we could have ever imagined. Today, we wish to honor you." Zix stepped forward, holding a small glowing orb. "This is the stellar harmony," Zix explained. "It's our highest symbol of friendship and unity. We've never given one to a non-Lunaran before." Jake's eyes widened as Zix placed the orb in his hands. It pulsed with a soft, warm light that seemed to resonate with his very being. "Thank you," Jake said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I didn't do this alone. This is a victory for all of us, human and Lunaran alike." Elder Vex nodded approvingly. "Wise words. And that is why we have another announcement to make. We are proposing a joint mission, humans and Lunarans together, to explore beyond our solar system." The room erupted in excited chatter. Jake could hardly believe his ears. "You mean?" "Yes," Zix confirmed, its eyes twinkling. "It's time we explored the stars together, old friend." As the details of the mission were discussed, Jake felt a sense of wonder wash over him. He thought back to that fateful day when he had crashed on the moon, certain he was going to die. Instead, it had been the beginning of the greatest adventure humanity had ever known. Looking around the room at the mixed group of humans and Lunarans, all talking excitedly about the future, Jake knew that this was only the beginning. There would be challenges ahead, of course. Misunderstandings to navigate, differences to reconcile. But there would also be discoveries, friendships, and achievements beyond their wildest dreams. As the meeting concluded, Jake stepped to a window overlooking both the Lunaran city and the Earth hanging in the black sky above. He placed a hand on the glass, the stellar harmony glowing warmly in his other hand. "One small step for a man," he murmured, smiling at the old quote. "One giant leap for two worlds." With the Earth and Moon behind him and the infinite expanse of space ahead, Jake knew that the true journey was just beginning. Humanity and Lunara, once separated by fear and ignorance, were now united in their quest to explore the cosmos. Together, there was no limit to what they could achieve. The future, vast and unknown, beckoned. And for the first time in history, they would face it not as separate species, but as one united people of the stars.